right, well, this is Aaron Squire coming to you guys again. Today looks like August 8th, and you know what that means. We got Gen Con coming up next week. I got Golden Saucer Guy on with me again tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about some of the updates for the Hasbro Wizards LLC lawsuit update. We're going to do some of the Hex updates. I missed last week because I was trying to support the Child's Play stream, so we're going to also cover that a little bit. Corey's blog, the Threshold contest that's going to be going on at Gen Con, and then we'll finish up with this deck doctor that Golden Saucer Guy set me up with, where it's got some dwarfedness going on in there. So we'll go ahead and swap right over to the show and get things going on. Now, Golden Saucer Guy was on my show. I can't remember which one, but I will post that down below, so make sure to check on that. And one more thing, I happen to have an extra beta key lying around. So if you guys don't have a beta key, if somebody posts, the first person that posts it to me in my text chat, I will give it to you. And if nobody posts it on there, the first person that posts when I post this out to YouTube, I will get you that beta key. But we're going to talk about some other ways to get beta keys also tonight. So first off, the lawsuit update. So if you go to the Reddit, this is where I learned about it. I'm sure there's other places. That's not a good way to go, but bunch of different comments in the Reddit thread about what's going on, and then it takes you out. Like, there was a link that takes you out to how it is that basically the last thing that was said was Hex said, yeah, show us some specific examples. So basically Wizards came back and said, here are the examples. Here's all the different cards and how similar they are to your cards. And, they're just basically looking at functionality and a lot of that type of thing. So I'll just get some initial thoughts from Golden Saucer Guy. Let him talk about what he thinks.
Yeah, I've been digging into this last couple of days, and I'm debating about with some of the streamers and everything, and I tried to be as unbiased as possible with going back and forth. I do a lot of judging in Magic for like Grand Prix and such, and I play a lot of Hex. So a lot of the things they're going to be digging from is actually from a trademark case with it was Kellogg's versus National Biscuit. And what it is they actually established a case law with the functionality doctrine, where comparing two things and their functionality, that businesses have to be allowed to compete with a rival product. And I think that's going to come into a lot when you have to dig in with some of these cards. Now, a lot of these cards, they aren't cookie cutter exact copies of the card, but functioning wise, they are very similar. So it's interesting to see. I don't really know where it's going to happen in court. I know that Wizards of the Coast is going to want a jury on this, which I think kind of works a little better in their favor. Hex would certainly rather just have a judge involved to settle this, but it's really interesting to see how they want to compare what cards they pulled out. There's some much better examples in here than others. There's some cards, like when we passed by the Pact of Pain and what was it, Greed. Those ones, there's just some interesting ones that just aren't good comparisons, but there are some that are reasonable. I mean, there are cards that work very similarly. Now, like I said, if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty, these cards aren't the same. If you're going to like pick it apart minor detail for minor detail. But if you kind of take a step back, maybe a little more of an uneducated view of both games, you would say that these cards are very similar. So it's a matter of viewpoint and opinion. Who knows where they're going to go with this? The functionality doctrine, though, would say that the Hex has the ability to compete. So we'll see. I don't know.
Right. And I'll just point out to everyone that's looking for keys also that Zubrin is right. We on Reddit have, I'm one of the admins that helps him out. They gave us 300 keys to give out as well. So, if you're looking for keys, go to there. But getting back to the issue at hand, yeah, I mean, I just really hope that things get worked out for the better. Originally, I thought that this case was going to be over in maybe, at least a year, but it looks like, from my standpoint, maybe up to 2 years. Before it is that finally they go to trial and then everything maybe gets resolved.
It's going to be some time.
Dismiss it. Yeah, it's going to be some time, and during that time, we're going to get PvE released. I believe that Corey did talk about how PvE is going to be shortly following Set 2 release as well. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. Do you want any final thoughts there, Golden Saucer Guy?
Now, you know what? I think the length of this case is going to be something that's going to be more in Hex's favor. That gives them a chance to show that there is a lot of differences in the game where the base set is very kind of, I don't want to say vanilla, but it is easily comparable in form and function to Magic. Whereas they grow into their own being, we're going to see them probably purposefully go in a more unique direction.
Right. Okay, so moving on. Let's see. I got to kind of like escape out of this thing here. Gotta escape. All right, there we
Run
go.
away.
Run away! Run away! All right, so I missed an update because I didn't do a show last week in order to support the stream. We had the stream with Infamous Neo and Sirius, and it says they had about $10,000 here, and then we find out in the next update that they made, it looks like I wrote down $13,000. So congratulations, Infamous Neo and Sirius. Good job raising money for all the different children that are going to be affected by the Child Play stream. I unfortunately was not on the stream because I don't know how to tell time. Yeah, so like I double messed up the time slot, but apparently it worked out because my slot followed Corey, and apparently he went long, and so I would have had like 20 minutes. And I was thinking about it later. I was like, you know, out of all the people to follow, that's not the act to follow. I don't want to have to follow up Corey Jones because they're going to be like, who's this guy?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I actually don't feel too bad about it. I'm really happy for those guys, and I hope that in some small way I contributed and helped out by not actually getting on and trying to take airtime away from them and running the show last week.
You know, good on them. That's a lot of money to raise. That went towards a good cause. That's just a really great thing to do. It's great for Corey to jump on and obviously be a part of that and support it and everything. So, and it looks great on us as a community. I mean, as a community of Hex players,
right.
we are very positive, moving forward kind of group.
Right. The playing with the devs didn't go very well. The 128 player tournament, they mentioned here, we tried to stress test it. We stress tested it all right. We stress tested it so hard that nothing happened on that day. They gave everybody tickets, and for the people that showed up that were even just logged in for constructed tournaments, I believe. So that's might be why some of the constructed tournaments are firing a little bit more now. Moving on to some of the convention season stuff, there are these awesome card backs you're going to get just for signing up to play if you're at Gen Con. Then you've got this Jovial Pipit, which is a troop that says at the start of your turn, you may choose a card from your hand and transform it into a different card of the same shard as the original card. This is a wild, two wild threshold, and for a cost of 2, it's a 2/1. It's a pretty strong troop, but at the same time, he could kind of backfire. It's just going to be very interesting. Another mechanic you really can't do in a physical card game. Anything to talk about with a Jovial Pipit there?
Yeah, it's cool. It's nifty. It gives some variety and some flavor. Like switching the shard, I mean, you could, in theory, run.
No, it's the same shard. It's a different card.
Same shard, sorry.
Yeah, right, it could be anything, because like, you could turn like your Chlorophilia into a Fist of Brigadon or something, is what it says. It says that card transforms into a different card with the same shard as the original card. So it doesn't say the same number of shards, just the same shard type, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's how I read it.
Roll the dice.
Yeah, it's a roll the dice kind of card. So it could be really good or it could be really bad. But a 2/1 body for 2 is not bad. I would draft this guy because you never know what's going to happen. Your deck's going to play out very differently every game if he lands.
I don't know if it'll hit a lot of constructive play. Most people like to know exactly where their deck is going and what it's going to do.
Well, so you could think about it. You could play a lot of acceleration and then just play in wild and then just kind of see what happens, type of stuff. And
right.
You never know what you're going to run into. Moving on, you got the Broski Busk. We kind of covered this before. He's another mercenary. It says create a random card. He's a very he loves randomness apparently. Basic 3 shard cost. Create a random card from among the threshold you have and put them into your hand. And then his passive is when you play a card, if you've played 20 or more of non-resource cards with different names in the game, you win the game. So very much one of those fun type of cards that it encourages you to play lots of different cards, more of a PvE thing there. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
It just sounds like fun. I mean, you can definitely tell the creators are having really fun with this game, and that's good. And there's people out there. I mean, I'm that kind of guy. I like to just play things that are enjoyable. I don't always have to be competitive. Like, there's a time to be very competitive, and there's a time to just kind of relax and see what kind of neat stuff you can come up with. And that seems like a fun card. I'll play with it, or a fun hero.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see if PvE champions or PvE mercenaries and PvE cards would be usable in maybe a format like Commander or something like that. And in which case, this guy would be pretty awesome. Instead of a Commander, you would have a PvE champion or a PvE mercenary. That could be neat. So let's say you're not going to go to Gen Con because you can't make it out there. The costs are too high and stuff. you can still get a lot of the promos, which they're going to outline in the next thing. So for my friend here, Gold Saucer Guy, is not going to be able to get out there. They're going to open it up so you're going to be able to get the card backs, the Jovial Pipit, alternate art, and the Mercenary in some fashion or another from doing something. So a lot of, like, if you play League of Legends, like, they have the special skins that come out when they do packs, and you can buy them even if you're not at packs. I think it's probably going to be something similar to that, where you'll probably just be able to pay a certain amount of money and you'll be able to get your PvE stuff for a limited time. So take that for what it's worth. They talk about the booster drafts. The booster draft winners are going to win this cool alternate art poster, and it is massive. It's a 12 by 36.
Wow.
I don't even know where you would put this thing. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Like, we know that the booster drafts are completely closed. They do talk about checking back at the booth while you're there to see if anything opens up. So, they're trying to make sure that people are there as much as possible.
Yeah, I want one. I mean, I don't know what I would do with it, but where I'd put it. I mean, it certainly wouldn't fit.
You might be able to get one if, you talk to your friend Aaron Squire over here. I might be able to hook you up. Because we're going to go to the next, that will be explained in the next Hex update, which we're going to go over in a minute. Beyond that, they're saying their friends at Gamoria are going to be at Gamescom, and they're going to have Corey there. So if you're in Germany, if you're in the German area, you're planning on going to Gamescom, and you want to talk to Corey Jones, check out this link right here. I can go ahead and link it, I guess, but I'm not sure what the time frame is going to be on that. So I do see people in channel. Hey, what's going on, Isako? I do see you saying hello. That's about it for this one. Let's move to the next update. So the next update, we see a lot of the same images, and they talk about giving away the promo codes to the Reddit so that way we can give stuff away. They talk about the $13,000. Not trying to rehash stuff too much. Then they talk about how it is that the poster that we see here, this massive 12 by 36 poster, is going to cost $30 a piece. They have 125 of them, so I plan on picking one of those up right away on day one. I'm probably going to pick one up for my good friend here, Golden Saucer Guy, or maybe some of my other contributors. If you're a contributor that's regularly on my show, or you just do Hex content and you want one of these, you need to contact me soon, so I can try to work something out with you to get one. So that way you can maybe have something nice to put behind you. I obviously already have like Hex art that's signed by the team and all that stuff, so it's not like I really need more stuff. They're also going to have t-shirts and hats and other stuff. I didn't get the t-shirt the first go around, so I definitely want a t-shirt to wear on my show. So pretty exciting. Anything to talk about with that, Golden Saucer Guy?
Yeah, I'm really happy you're thinking about getting me a poster. Let me tell you.
We did talk about it before the show.
Yeah,
I have multiple bromances. You're allowed to have these. Once you get married, you can have like multiple bromances. It's perfectly fine.
My wife's fine with it. She won't.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a bromance. It's whatever. So beyond that, let's say you are at the con, and like last year they did the dinner, which was on a Friday. This year they're doing not really a dinner that's closed. They're doing like an open, if you want to stop by and talk to us and hang out. On the Saturday, you're going to be able to go to Kilroy's Bar and Grill at 201 South Meridian Street around 7 on Saturday night, August 16th, and they will be out there. So you can get yourself a brew and talk to some of the dev team, or talk to some of the other people that are Hex related. I'm definitely going to be out there, but I have to go to the drunk ass games right after that. So I'm going to pre-game it and then head right over to I believe it's the Ram. So I have to go from one bar to another. So I'll be pub hopping that night, I guess, a little bit. But yeah,
I'm a little
I'll definitely
jealous.
be out there.
I'm a little jealous.
It's one of those things where I last year going to Gen Con, I was like, man, this is like, I love being out here and I want to go every year. I don't know when the next time I'm going to go is, and it just worked out very well this year that my time off work worked out, talking to my wife and different things, and so I'm just very blessed to be able to get out there for sure.
If I could afford to go, I would. Actually, have a friend who's going out there. He's like, "Oh, you can sleep on my floor. It'll be great." I'm like, that's still, it's going to cost me like $400 to go just to go out there. So it's just very expensive, but I'll go next year.
You got to hook up with some people, you got to hook up with people. Right. Get a lot of it's like, getting your the place where you're going to stay. So at the bottom of that update, you're going to notice that there was a Threshold podcast update, and in fact, Matt messaged me on my Twitter. He's like, "Hey, make sure to talk about our contest," and my answer to that was, what contest? And so I had to look it up. But apparently they also are going to get some posters. Some of these nice 16 by 20 canvases. You can get an Eldritch Dreamer or a Tyrannosaurus Hex. And what you need to do is go and get your picture taken with them while they're standing in line at the they're going to be at the Hex booth, and they outline exactly when they're going to be there. So go out there, talk to them, encourage those guys, because they have like something like 50 or 60, they're coming up on like 60 episodes. So make sure to encourage those guys with their podcast, because they're not doing it just because they're making money at it. They're doing it because they like the game and they like the community, and they're really supporting all of you guys out there and giving you entertainment. So make sure to get out there and talk to those guys. What they're going to do is a raffle, and if you win the raffle, then you'll get the poster. So I'm not sure how many they've got to give out, but I'll probably go and make sure I get my picture taken with them as well. And I think that you can also maybe do something online, even if you're not at the con. Maybe, I'm not sure. They do talk about using Twitter on here, so you might message them and ask them if you're not at the con to see if there's something they can do for you to get you a poster. But yeah, they are going to be giving away stuff. So anything to add to that?
No, I mean I love seeing other people get all kinds of stuff for doing contests. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Stuff.
And again, these are going to look really good, like especially if you're going to be like a content creator, or just if you want to have something cool up on your wall to look at. I mean, you've got some really, really nice art, especially that Eldritch Dreamer. That's the one I would pick.
Right.
Okay.
If you play Hex, you're going for the Eldritch Dreamer. I mean, I can't be like, if I were to show both this to my wife right now, she'd be like, get the one with the cool squid tentacles coming out of his eyes.
True enough. Okay, so Corey Hudson Jones put out a blog entry, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I didn't get a good chance to read it this week, but I'm going to. Right after we're done with the show, I'm going to give it a good read through. And it sounds like he's doing a lot of reminiscing in this one, talking about going to Disney World and doing some stuff when he was a lot younger. So I encourage you, as I always do, to get out there and read his blog entries and encourage him. Again, he's a president of the company. He doesn't really owe us this. He's doing this because he really likes our community, I think, and he really just likes us and wants us to know what's going on. So I really appreciate these blog entries. I say it every time, but I really just can't say it enough. We'll get down to the cards, but before we do, some comments from Golden Saucer Guy.
Yeah, you should read the article. There is actually a thing where he talks about he got this sweet Imperial troop transport, and his friend just peed all over it out of jealousy, literally just got mad and just pissed over the whole thing. So it's a pretty good story. Yeah, I like his blog posts. Corey, if you're listening to this, man, do more, be more frequent. I love seeing just thoughts on life and the card game and everything. It's really great. I like it.
Yeah. So then he talks about the poster again, the really massive 12 by 36 poster, which I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I have any space for something like that. I mean, I'm obviously gonna try to get one right away. So hopefully I won't get sniped. I mean, there will be 125 of them, and then there's I guess there's gonna be these special sleeves. Each poster will come with one of these special sleeves for the game, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, definitely. I have one other poster it's that size. It's the Kefka from Final Fantasy VI, his final boss form. It goes through all the parts of it in one shot. I can't find a frame for that either. I don't know where I'd find a frame.
Well,
for
you
this
have
one,
to,
but
yeah, you have to get it framed, and it is not cheap. Let me tell you.
Not at all.
So moving on to some of the reveals here. So we've got Cottontail Recruiter, which says it's a 1 threshold, 1 cost, and it's a 1/1. It says if you would create one or more battle hoppers, instead create that many Shinhair Militia. And for those of you that don't know, a Shinhair Militia is a 1/2 for 1. So a much, much better troop. This is a much more of a tokeny type of creature that we want to see in this game. Not so much this. Another thing that's interesting to me is if you're talking about Magic, typically when you're talking about token creatures, the token creatures are the same toughness and the same power level. And the reason why is because it's very difficult to keep track of things if I put a pebble out as my token. Whereas in this, everything is represented properly. So making tokens that are different powers and toughness is much more doable, much more efficient when we're talking about Hex. Or, I mean, token creatures in any game really would work that way.
Statistically, you're looking at a cool change here too, because before you're putting out 0-1s, now you're putting out 1-2s. So if you produce 3 of those in a turn, you're looking at a 3-3 total difference in stats on board. So just by playing this card that costs 1, every time you pop a Shin Hair out, it's immediately better.
Right. I mean, and also what it's going to do is it's going to make you play more tactically. Like, you might sit and wait for your Cottontail Recruiter to come up before you start playing your champion powers, or before you play like your other cards that give you more battle hoppers, unless you need them for like chump blockers or something. You know, you might just save that up a little bit until you get your recruiter in hand. And it'd be nice if there was something that could search out Shin Hair, like maybe search 5 cards or search 3. That would be nice. To try to get to something like this, because this guy's kind of important for the deck. Moving on to some of the PvE gear that's been released for the Shin Hair Militia, and you're thinking to yourself, Shin Hair Militia is pretty bad, but actually with the PvE gear, he's not so bad. Like, he becomes like a 2/3 with this boots of the Militia Marchers, and then with this Gong of the Moon Aru, he becomes, it says when he dies, take a Shin Hair from your deck and put it into your hand. So he basically tutors out a random Shin Hair Militia. So, I mean, what do you think about some of this stuff that's going on here we got going on?
Oh, tons of flavor. How if you are a PvE guy, like, this stuff's got to make you really happy. Like, that's cool. You're taking a card that was so vanilla and giving it so much flavor by being able to equip something that gives it, like, it's now going to be a 2/3 for common equipment. Oh, if you lose your creature, you're going to get a random Shin Hair out of your deck, or you're going to get a Shin Hair. I mean, this stuff is going to make this game pick up for all those casual players and all those PvE players. These are the kind of things you want to see. And this is just a proof of concept, then I'm all in.
Yeah, I mean, so, like, the other thing I'm looking at with this card is I'm saying to myself, okay, boots go on the feet. Where does the gong go?
Right.
I mean, am I hanging that around my neck?
Is he just carrying a gong now?
Is it just, where is it going? Like, maybe there's a trinket slot or something. That would be the most obvious, but, that gong could go in a lot of places.
I mean, just looking at the screenshot, just looking at the screenshot, it looks like you just get 3 items. It doesn't even matter at the moment. That's about what I would estimate would fit there.
Yeah, so
just by that window. So who knows what the limit's going to be? But I'm.
Well, usually there's 3.
Ready.
There's up to 3 equipment slots. I don't know if we've seen anything with all 3 of them used. Maybe I think I've seen 1 or 2. But yeah. We don't, but the PvE champions, we don't even know how many equipment slots are going to be on them. Obviously, like, you can't wear 2 sets of boots, but, like,
right.
Do you get 2 trinkets? What do you get? What else do you get? How many rings do you get? Do you get 2 rings or 1 ring? What do you get? Moving on, we got Necrophage Sensei, which is 2 and 1 blood threshold. It says it's a 0/0, but it's not, because when it comes into play, it gets permanent +1/+1 for each troop in your graveyard. So, kind of good, maybe in limited. Maybe in a very specific deck that's throwing stuff in your graveyard right away, it could be good, but I don't know. I kind of like him, but at the same time, I kind of not so great with him. I give him a 3 out of 5.
I want to like it. It worries me as this troop enters play, it gets permanent. It's not like this troop's attack and or power and defense, whatever, is always equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. It's at this moment. Here you go.
Right.
And it costs 2, so I mean, how much is going to be in your graveyard on 2? Is it really a 2-drop, or is it a late game, possibly cheap good creature? I don't know.
Well, yeah, he's going to be good all game, I guess. I mean, as long as things are getting put in the graveyard. I mean, there's nothing that pulls a whole graveyard out of the game yet. So,
right.
Typically, there's going to be something in there, right?
I suppose you can make the argument that you could probably do a heavier on the blood side Shin Hair, where you're sacrificing, gaining life, the creatures that are going in there from Shroomshaw and all that. But even then, you're looking at, like, turn 3 and 4, him being maybe a 3/3 or 4/4, which that's good. That's definitely good. It's not bad.
He's pretty vanilla. I don't think he's going to see very much standard play. I mean, he'll probably see some limited play, and that's about it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. All right, so we actually plowed through a ton of stuff, and in fact, I'm going to look through my notes, make sure we hit it all. My goodness, there was so much to talk about. Oh, one other thing, they're going to be at booth at Gen Con. Their booth number is 601, in case anyone was wondering, but that's also on the forum post. And yeah, just again, Hex Reddit has beta keys, and I have one to give away if somebody needs a beta key. If not, I'm going to first person that posts on this when it's on YouTube, let me know. And we'll move on to the deck doctor. So this deck doctor was sent to me by none other than Golden Saucer Guy right here.
Yep.
So
I put this deck together like 3 days ago before I lay down to go to bed, because I had this idea where Mimic is a better card than I want to give it credit for being, and I came up with this really janky deck, and it's not good. Let's be sure. I mean, this isn't like top tier deck. This is just something fun that I was just crafting up, and let's play with it a little bit.
Right. So first thing, right before the cast, I said let's trade a shrine for another Mirror Knight, because that's going to help us recover from the impending doom that is some sort of sweep. I felt like that was a pretty good choice here. We also noticed that our curve is not horrible, but we're only running 22 shards, which he said he hasn't had problems with. If you can ignore the 5-6 range, we're actually only running like 1, 2, 3. So 22 might be okay for that. Plus, he does have a lot of reduction in cost with the Technical Genius and the Gearsmith.
Right. So if you're looking, your total cost reduction cards are Technical Genius taking away artifacts, make them cost 1 less. You're looking at Gearsmith reducing the cost when you see one on the draw when you play him. And then you're looking at your Shrine possibly revealing stuff to give you reduced cost on the spell range and increasing your strength. So what's happened mostly is my 5 and 6 costs usually cost somewhere around the 3 to 4 range. Droos are very quickly to get out on 4. And the nice thing about the Technical Genius is the most necessary card in the deck, really, because your Droos being reduced in cost means that they are able to be approached by your Doppelgadgets, which did I throw them? They did not make it on the list. It was like, okay. Yeah, so by the Doppelgadget. The Doppelgadget is also your utility card. So the other thing that's interesting is your Mimic is going to be creating a artifact version of it. So you have a ton of options in your Mimic. So not only can you pop one of your opponent's creatures to pull something, but you can copy a Technical Genius to help reduce your costs. You can, and if you do, of course, on a Technical Genius, the Technical Genius will then cost you 1 to play. So if you're sitting on 3 resources and you have a Mimic in hand, you're looking at getting another Genius out. Earlier, I played a game with someone and I had Buccaneers. Well, I did Mimic twice on Buccaneers to just continuously push the game longer and later. So Mimic is very utility. Of course, the win thing is really Droos. I mean, you're looking. I've had at the point where I've had 6 Droos on the board at one point. So it gets a little. It can get ridiculous quickly. Some issues I've had were the Turbine is not necessary, but it's really useful. I thought about upping that by 1, but when I had it at 3, I just kept getting them too much.
I kind of want something else to do with it. I mean, all it does is untap our It's got one use. Our Droos, but I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess it doesn't even really do anything for Slaughter Gear. So we talked about Slaughter Gear, and you were talking about dropping it. I think that's a good choice. I think we can drop that right off the bat.
I was getting 5/5s after I got Droos, and then using like Turbine to untap them if I wanted to get a quick combo. But it really wasn't. The Drew is the better card between
Slaughter
the two.
Gear says I want it to be used with lots of tokens, so a lot of like what do you call them, worker bots or something. I'm really not seeing that in this deck. That's not what he's saying. I don't really want to be in this deck. So we're gonna respect his wishes, and we're gonna say, all right, you can go spend your time doing something else. Mastery of Time's another odd choice for this deck. I mean, how did you feel about that? You played with the deck a little bit more than I have.
Right. So I put a 1 of. It's like I need some other way of trying to maybe pull a win out. I had a game where I was sitting on 2 Droos and he had 20 life still, where I swung in with both. I was sitting at 18. I Mastery of Timed, pulled another turn, dropped myself down to 2 life, and swung in again for the victory. Right. So it's an odd thing. 1 of is definitely all I would run in this deck. If you put more than that, you're just going to waste it. I did a Mastery of Time on 4 the last game I played because I hit it off a Shrine. So it was kind of interesting, but it's not the card. You don't want to see that card too often. It's just if we're in a stalemate, this might save me and put me into the win.
Right. I mean, another thing about Shrine is, like, if we put Countermagic in here, then our opponent gets to see that we have Countermagic sometimes, which could be pretty bad. But typically with Sapphire, we like to play Countermagic. So let's go ahead and look at some cards, putting some cards in here first before we start pulling anything else. Argus is a maybe. I'm going to put a 1 of, but he's probably not going to make it. Just as a thought. Chargebot, So we aren't really playing lots of bots. Yeah, I'm not really
No.
seeing that.
When I was thinking through artifacts, I was looking for stuff that if I adjusted its cost from the 5-6 range down lower into range of my Doppelgadget.
Yeah.
I mean, having Doppelgadget basically means I'm running 7 Droos in the deck, and 3 of those are utilities
What do you think
that
about?
I can switch it to something else.
So why didn't you run like Volcannon?
I didn't think about Volcan too much. Now, how many things can run off Volcan? We're looking at...
You need to have dudes. So that's the only
Right,
thing.
right.
So it's like a one of in this deck because we aren't unless we switch your champion, which we might.
That might be a viable option.
I think that
the only-
think it's okay. Go ahead.
With Wyatt, the only reason Wyatt was good was because with my Shrine, if I hit a resource, I was getting extra shards, so I was drawing on sometimes turns 3, 4 range, or I was having it hit more often. But that card advantage is measurable compared to doing extra damage. So
Secret Lab's another choice you could go with in here. It depends on how the artifacts are working, because you can untap it with... This gets you better functionality out of your Dwarven Turbine. Yeah, you can untap it, and then you can use it twice if you wanted to. So let's go ahead and just... we're just throwing some ideas out there right now.
absolutely.
Like, as a one of. Surge Mechanism, probably not necessary, because you don't have anything like that's an X cost, so I don't really like that one right now. Maybe if we get an X draw cards later on, maybe something like that would be better.
Right.
Let's go ahead and... I think we can swap our champion. What do you think? I mean, like,
Let's go for it. Why not?
Yeah, I think that we should swap the champion out. Actually, he's right there. I love you so much, Wyatt, but right now we're going to have to go with Bertram. So
The nice thing about Bertram, too, is I might get a couple extra blockers out of it. I could save myself a little bit against some aggression. Some issues I've had already in games. Flight has been an issue. I don't seem to get to my Mirror Knights as quickly as I'd like for board wipes, Eternal Fog. I had a long game with Eternal Fog deck where I actually kept him pretty low, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Because he
Until
kept
he played
wiping my
Uranus
board.
or something.
Yeah, I had a decent amount of cards sitting behind he couldn't touch. I was sitting on Shrines and Doppelgadgets and Keys. And he just couldn't, I would get cards and he couldn't really interact with them at all. So that was the only positive experience I had there. Falconer crushes me because, again, no flying.
Yeah,
Early aggression
yeah.
hasn't been too big of a deal.
So did you ever consider Pterobot at all in this deck? Because Pterobot's a solid body that could get cheap really fast.
Right, and you're also looking at Doppelgadget possibly copying it for the lower reduced cost.
Right.
Let's throw a Pterobot in and see what that
yeah,
does.
I got 4 of those in there. Another one I looked at just now was Time Ripple. Time Ripple is crazy in this deck, and here's why.
Right.
Droos Walker. Because
Right.
if you can't untap him, you can always Time Ripple him at your opponent's end step and then replay him in your next turn. I mean, that's pretty good play right there.
I mean, you're looking at possibly having Shrine hit off a Time Ripple, and you have a Time Ripple for 1. That's really very low cost.
You could go with a single Infiltrator bot, but there's probably better things. I don't think that that's really going to do very much for us. That's more of a limited play card that it just kind of pushes damage. Plus with the Pterobots, I mean, they do probably a better job, and they have evasion that's almost as good.
Right. All right, so we're looking at... Did
else?
you
Got
keep
the
the
Elder
Ancestors
Streamer.
Chosen?
Ancestors Chosen, I went ahead and threw those in there preliminary because I'm considering using them over the Mirror Knights. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on curve, and we have to theory craft it a little bit.
Right.
Chimes probably not. We don't have anything to cast. Lord Benjamin is definitely not. Mentalist is probably not.
Right. Now, I did have a variation of this deck that used Sabotage and Chimes and other things to see if I could get Chimes out a lot earlier. I got it out on a 4 once, which is crazy. But Chimes, I successfully got Chimes pretty relatively often on 5. But even that's not soon enough. It's just that I inevitably am losing the game by 5.
Yeah.
So it's just not quick enough. I didn't like the strategy. But I was killing people with Droos with that deck, so I ended up switching over to this one where it was very Droo heavy.
How many times has Droos killed you? I have to ask. Or where is it you've been in a situation where it's like you just can't untap him, and now you have a board state where you have nothing there because he's basically tapped. Or
I've been
exhausted.
down to 10 life sitting on a Droo with the thought of paying 8 to untap it and being at 2 a few times because I find myself getting Droo 1, 2, and 3. I've played 6 Droos in a game, no problem. It's just been that ridiculous. But it's like you need to buy your time, and a lot of times the Droo is like the best blocker I have, to be honest. Even though he's forced to attack, I'll roll in with him and do an untap on him. But yeah, I've actually, in the version before this, I've time rippled the Droo back to my hand, skipped combat, and then played him out again because I didn't want to attack.
Yeah. So I'm really looking at this and looking at the amount of like troops that we've got. Let's see. The bots that Bertram makes are ones, right? They're one cost, right?
Right.
Worker bots. So they're not going to take the buff from Mirror Knight. So let's look at what Mirror Knight is buffing in here, because he is basically a buff. If we, for some reason, we stick with Argus, he buffs him. That's 1. He buffs the Technical Geniuses, so that's 4 more. So that's 5. The Buccaneers, kind of a big deal. So that's another 9. The Droos, so that's so he isn't really. But his buff targets, he has a decent amount, but it's not like super heavy. So I mean, it's really going to be up to you. I think Chosen might actually be a better choice for this deck.
Right, and I've had a lot of issues with flyers, and that solves that problem to some extent. I get them on board to block a few of those, whatever, usually 4/1 flyers coming in. 2 Ancestors Chosen can block an Angel without a problem.
Or we could go down to like maybe just 2 Mirror Knights and maybe 2 Chosen for curve purposes, something like that. And just see how. I think you would have to really test this to get where you feel it's best.
The other thing too is we can't count the Doppelgadget on it, because a Doppelgadget is not a creature when it comes out, so it never gets the Mirror Knight's ability off it ever. Like if it transforms into something, it doesn't have it. So
it could. If you mimic the Mirror Knight and then put the replica into play, then the Doppelgadget could mimic the thing. That's a lot. That's a lot to ask.
Right.
Another thing he noticed also, which is I said we should probably put a bug report in, is he mimicked the Slaughter Gear thingy, which is unique, and then he put it into play and it killed one. So that shouldn't happen, because the replicas follow the rule where if it's in play, even if it's a unique, it's a replica of it, and it has all the same abilities. And
in this scenario,
it's not unique.
The card that the replica in my hand this show didn't have unique, but it's still checked and wiped. So I don't really know what the deal is there. So I will keep testing it and see what happens.
So I want to play Countermagic in here, but at the same time, I think Shrine says don't play Countermagic in the main.
Right.
So we'll go and move 4 to the reserves. And I mean, if you're playing Sapphire, I would have a hard time not playing less than 3 in my reserves anyways. So
right. And if I'm playing if I'm playing Eternal Fog or something where I need some of these cards to knock them out again, Relentless Corruption and so on and so forth, like I don't want to see those. I don't want to be facing Droos as well. So I would put 4 in that scenario and probably consider removing my Shrines maybe.
Yeah, I would pull Shrine for that. Yeah, if you side in Countermagic, I would side out Shrine in a heartbeat. That's what
right, because you're looking at a long game, and in a long game, the Shrine doesn't do me any good. So it's really an unnecessary card. There's maybe a couple cards I'd pull out for a long game to see if I could control them enough to steal a victory with a big... Now, one of the things that's interesting with this deck when I was playing the Eternal Fog was their life total hitting the 30, 40s, 50 range wasn't a big deal when I was using my Doppelgadget to mimic my Turbine and swing in with 3 to 4 Droos a turn. You can bring their life total down pretty fast. Right. Now, I got board wiped once and had to pull a Droo out, mimic it to keep 1 in hand just in case it happened again. It was a very odd game. Talk about a screwy matchup, but so strange MVPs in this deck, and the most important card, interestingly enough, if people focus on the Technical Genius, it hurts the deck quite a bit. And if my Gearsmith also turned out to be a really big card, I had a game where I had a Technical Genius Gearsmith on 1, pulled a Droo, cost 4, next turn played Technical Genius, and then so we're looking on turn 3, I had a Droo. So there is some really good opener stuff where you're going to be swinging with a Droo. If you're on the play, they're not going to be able to get a Extinction out on you before you're swinging 8 at them. So there's definitely some good options there. Obviously, Murder doesn't work. So there are some positive matchups in here. The deck still isn't great. It's just meant to be fun. It's enjoyable. It's something that's not, not
the
top
meta, not the super meta.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that's really my focus. I've been talking to you over the last couple weeks on Twitter. I'm just trying to find decks that aren't really big right now and play with some nifty ideas. So,
right. So the only problem I have with Mimic is in an open board state, it doesn't do anything, so we're going to drop that to 3 right now. Our 3-point range is super stock, so I'm looking for it to make cuts in there. I'm looking at this Oracle Song, and maybe just take that down to 1. I'm trying to get a good curve here. It's really, really hard to do.
Right. Yeah, and this deck's curve is wonky because you don't know what your curve's going to be until you're looking at the cards in your hand.
Right.
Really.
And you know, we actually probably, I'm not even sure, if we decide to play Argus, we'll probably have to play that extra shard. So you know what, I think we can just safely throw him on the reserves for that long game versus that control matchup and not worry about him being in the main. And it looks like I have to refresh my page, so I will go ahead and do that.
Yeah, just had to do that. All right, so
I think that, Argus isn't bad in this deck. It's just he's for a specific matchup. And so we'll go ahead and just throw him straight into the reserves and pull him from the main. That will help us work out our curve a little better anyways. Everyone knows how much I love having a good curve. Another thing we need to consider is how often Gearsmith is going to hit. So we need to look at how many artifacts. And I think we actually upped them from what the deck was originally. So we should be in actually better shape now.
Yeah, Gearsmith, I felt like it was a 50% deal at the time. It looks like it might be a little bit better now.
So I guess that's one more thing to look at when we're considering Ancestors Chosen is Gearsmith and Ancestors Chosen are competing forces. So maybe Ancestors Chosen isn't as good as I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at Ancestors Chosen being great against a flying deck. You're looking at Falcons. Maybe
this is another one we just relegate to the reserves, just for that specific matchup. And I think that's a good choice. I mean,
so what are we at for cards now?
We're at 61 in the main deck right now.
Well, on the plus side, you've really helped me build up my reserves. I didn't have a clear idea where I was going with my reserves yet. I just knew what I was losing to. So I think I really like this Volcannon Betram option. It's really neat because now I have the ability to swing in for 8.
Well, so the Volcannon is wonderful because it deals with sweeps. It's awesome, Yeah, not to cut you off, but I did. Sorry.
That's all right. No, you're good. Yeah, so you're looking at, so if I'm getting board swept, I have a Volcannon I can rely on. If I'm swinging with at least one Droo, I'm looking at 8, pop him for another 3. I'm looking at 11 in one turn, so that's really solid. Chaos Keys are obviously my only option for a variety of removal. There's really no options there.
The problem with Chaos Key is its basic action speed, which means you can only use it in your first or second main phase. So, I mean, that's the biggest problem. It's going to be your one answer against those soul marbles that are out there, as far as metagame type stuff. If you're going to go that direction, so
yeah, I did pop one. They had one blocker left, and I didn't have any way to bounce it, so I popped it to kill a 2/2 to finish them off, which is really sad, but it worked. Yeah, Volt Key or Chaos Key is my really only option there. I like the Secret Lab.
I think the Secret Lab is really going to help give you extension, especially because we got rid of your champion. You really don't need a lot of shards, hopefully, in this deck. Once you get to 5, you're pretty much there, hopefully. I mean, even less than that, depending on what the board state is. If you actually have your tech geniuses out, then you're in a better job.
We have Zubrin. I like Zubrin Alpha. Is mentioned that the price of surge mechanism is too low. I think the deck needs more surge mechanisms. Well,
yeah. So 20 artifacts. Yeah, 20 is a 1 in 3, which is good, and that's good that Vengu Shex pointed that out because I believe it's Gearsmith looks at 3 cards, so that means that there's a very good chance we should hit. I mean, it's not going to happen all the time still, but I mean, 1 in 3 is good. That's kind of where we want to be. So if he counted it out for me, it looks like 4, 8, 9, 10. Not that I don't trust you. 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 17, 18. We're actually at 18 artifacts right now. So I don't know that I want to get rid of any more artifacts. We're at 60 cards exactly. I'm looking to get that one extra shard in here because I'm not comfortable with playing it like this, but according to Golden Saucer Guy, 22 shards for this is perfectly fine because you have so much reduction in costs. My thing is if they kill that early tech genius, you could be sitting on a Droos for a couple of extra turns. If they play a Vampire King, that Droos is turning into a vampire. and that's not going to be a
Absolutely.
good day.
Yeah, it's definitely risky. It's very risky. So if we had a way to put it up to 23, 24, that'd certainly be fine.
We'll probably go with the time ripple here. I think is
Right.
and then we'll probably throw some more of these on the reserves again for specific
Okay.
matchups. Like if your time ripple is wonderful against the Angel of Dawn, because like your opponent gets lucky, they get the turn 2, and then you time ripple it back to their hands, and now it costs 6. So that's pretty good.
Right.
That's like one of the most amazing times that you can time ripple something, I'd say. The other time is like when you swing in and your opponent thinks that they have it because they've got a fully leveled soul marble, and then you time ripple their soul marble during combat. I mean, that's pretty awesome, although they should probably see that play coming.
Right. Gamer 2005 mentioned Total Meltdown. Yes, that card would totally wreck me. There's no doubt. But, I have played 30 games. I haven't seen someone play it once. Not very many people main deck it. Sideboard, obviously, you're going to see 1 or 2. I don't know many people that would run 4 of them sideboard.
Total Meltdown was that in Ruby?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what's it? So the thing is, like with Total Meltdown, is like, what's the metagame right now? How many artifacts do we really, really, really need to deal with? Like Droos, but how many people are running Droos in some of the top decks right now? Like almost nobody. I can't think. Of
now I want to rename this deck Droves and Droves of Drows.
Droves of Droos. I like that.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. But we're going to name the episode that.
All right.
Droves of Droos. Yeah, I mean, Chaos Key is another one you kind of have to deal with for Total Meltdown. But again, like I'm just a Volcannon. But these cards are not seeing play in the metagame right now at all.
No.
So I mean, Total Meltdown maybe. More often than not, what you're going to see is, if you're going to see anything, is you're going to see the Exile. What is it called? I always forget what it's called. It's in Diamond, Double Diamond, cost 3. It's I forget what it's called. Now I'm gonna have to look it up. Okay, hold on.
Right.
It's gonna be right here. Exile.
So fun stories I've had with this the last couple days.
Yeah,
I've had a guy rage quit because I went from 1 Droo to 4 Droos in 2 turns, with relative ease thanks to Doppelgadget. I've actually had Doppelgadget copy my shrine for extra charges or extra reduced costs or increased stats. I had 3 shrines out thanks to getting a bunch of Doppelgadgets and made to take an extra turn. What do you call it? Sorry, what's the Mystery of Time? Cost me only 2. So I ended up the following turn playing a card for like 2 and then a time ripple for 2. So they certainly didn't miss bad. But there's nifty, weird things that happen with this deck. It's just fun. I had a good time. I'm excited to try this version now.
Yeah, Nature's Reigns is the other thing I was looking for there. That's what I was digging for. So Gamer 2005 asks, what's the purpose of Shrine in this deck? So the whole deck is perpetrated on the concept that we are going to reduce the cost of our stuff. Now, it does say non-troop, non-resource. So most of our troops are going to be the same, but like our Volcannon gets cheaper, our Doppelgadget gets cheaper, our Secret Lab gets cheaper, our whatever it's called is free. Dwarven Turbine is free. Yeah, that's about
You're also
it.
looking at cards hitting, like you're looking at
Chaos
your
Key.
Buccaneer being a 3/3 for 3. You're looking at your Technical Genius becoming out of the range of a burn.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Tech Genius
Extra charges.
burn or what is it called? The sweep. Heat wave. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. Like 3 toughness right now in the game is just a huge deal. I mean, the only thing better than 3 is obviously 4, which is where you've got cards like your Vampire King and stuff like that. I mean, 4 toughness is definitely a good place to be at for a lot of the Ruby removal that's out there. But 3 toughness is really good because a lot of it's 2-point removal. So
the other thing the Shrine's been good for is, sometimes in the early game, I don't have a Droo. I don't have, obviously, in this case, I wouldn't have a Volcannon. Doppelgadget has the potential to become a Shrine, thus increasing stats and costs and things like that, so it's kind of neat. I've turned my Doppelgadget into a Chaos Key, then used 1 Chaos Key. In this case, we can reduce the cost of Volcannon to have multiple Volcannons out in a turn. There's just I like Mimic and Doppelgadget are really big in this deck, and they shouldn't be understated because they become the card that you need them to be. And that's really one of the things. Like the board's a little bit locked down with creatures. You're not going to get through in combat. Well, let's go for the Volcannon style way of going. Let's get a Dwarven Turbine to unlock to untap some more Droos. Let's get another Pterobot to block the 4/4 Angels coming in. Those Mimic and Doppelgadget are really your, well, what do I need to do to win this game? What direction do I need to be running at? Also, again, Mimic is kind of neat. If they drop an Angel, you have no other answer. Mimic the Angel. Drop it for the reduced cost if you have Technical Genius out. Or in this case, hey, play Mimic, get an extra Technical Genius, and put him out for 1 and reduce your artifact costs even lower. Or sit on a Technical Genius. Leave 1 in your hand if you're worried about board sweeps.
Yeah, Gamer 2005, I completely agree with you. The Shrine of Prosperity can be a dead draw. I mean, in a board state where you need an answer, it can definitely be a dead draw. But in the early game, when you're trying to set up the game, it's pretty good. Sometimes it does feel like, yeah, you're not doing a whole lot for the turn. You're not affecting board states. It's a buff, and we should treat it as a buff. And it's pretty good. But in most decks that I tried out in, I really have a hard time playing much more than 2. Of course, we had Golden Saucer guys running like 4 of them, so he's going balls to the wall with it. But,
I was.
But yeah,
I was all in.
Yeah, he was all in on that Shrine of Prosperity. So we kind of calmed that down a little bit, and I think it should be just fine. The other big problem with Shrine is obviously you're going to give up a lot of information to your opponent, which is the worst problem to me. So the thing is with this, everything in here is pretty much not really. It's at basic action speed, so it doesn't matter too much. Your opponent's probably going to see it coming anyways during those basic action times. In the reserves, what I did was I added the extra 2 Chaos Keys for more removal in case we need it. The extra 2 Cerulean Mirror Knights come in probably against any type of sweep, I would say, or heavy removal type decks to kind of keep your hand filled. Argus is going to come up against that control matchup along with Countermagic. The Ancestors Chosen maybe against some sort of flyers, or maybe even against that mono wild deck, or that sleeper mono wild deck that's out there. You could bring that in. You got some flyers to just kind of fly over their stuff maybe. And then you've got the Time Ripples, of course, is another really good card against a plethora of decks, especially Diamond, as we found out recently with bouncing Soul Marbles and bouncing Angels. So that's what I would probably bring in most of this stuff against. So I think that's pretty much the deck. We're pretty much up against time. Okay, I'm just going to ask one more time before I leave. Does anybody in here not have access to beta right now? Because if you do, you need to tell me, because I have 1 key to give away, and I've been itching to get rid of this thing. And if not, it's going to go on my YouTube, and whoever posts there is going to need to post on it. I'm not seeing anything right now, so I'll just kind of go over the show notes, and then we will close things out. Anything to close out with before we do that, though, Golden Saucer Guy?
Not a whole lot. Thanks for listening. I like being on the show. I like being your hey, I need somebody on here
Watson.
This week. Yeah, right?
Yeah. And
yeah, it's kind of cool.
And like I said with that, like I'm always looking for new content providers. So if you guys know somebody, or if somebody's coming up on the scene, let them know. I'm always looking for people to come on the show and promote them, promote Hex, and just have a good time. So
please don't. Yeah, please don't give you an excuse to have to keep calling me back. Like, come on, you just got to be more people out here who do things. Don't let me be the guy who comes to the show every other week.
On vacation.
Right. Yeah. Right. I'm the only guy that's home on a Friday night, not doing anything. Great.
Plus, I got to compete with Friday Night Magic too. So, all right. So moving on, we've tonight we talked about the Hasbro Wizards versus Hex LLC Cryptozoic court case and some of the updates with that and how that's kind of like progressing. We went over the Hex updates. We had a ton of Hex updates to go through. Again, $13,000 for Child's Play. Congratulations, Sirius and Infamous Neo. We went over the Corey's blog and then the Threshold contest. So make sure you guys are getting out at Gen Con to talk to the Threshold guys. Get your raffle ticket. Get some pretty cool posters from them. And then we did this awesome Deck Doctor, which we are calling... what did we call it? Droos?
Droves of Droos?
Droves of Droos is what we're calling this. Right. So until next time, this is Aaron Squire saying off. Oh, actually, you know what? Real quick, plug your stuff before we sign off.
I am Golden Saucer Guy on Twitter. I am Golden Saucer Guy on Hex. I am Golden Saucer Guy on Twitch. I do try to stream if I get time to during the week. But yeah, please follow me on Twitter at least. I am loads of ridiculousness.
Yeah, I really appreciate all you guys for coming out. I really do. I really do. And so make sure to hit me up at Gen Con, say hello, maybe get a drink with me or whatever. And until next time, this is Aaron Squire signing off, saying God bless you and your families. Try not to rage too much out there.